Hi, I'm Olivia. This is Roland. And this is AV Club, where we talk about horror, literary fiction, weird books, anything we want to talk about. I was just talking all about my worst books of May, and now I'm here to talk about my best books of May. Well, I did read a few stinkers in May. Most of them were mid, so we're actually picking back up in kind of what I would consider the mid zone. We're still in the 3-star range. And my first book that I want to talk about in my best books of May is Haunt Sweet Home by Sarah Pinsker. The reviews for this did suggest that it would be kind of mid. However, I just wanted to go right ahead. And this book has a very interesting premise. It's about a kind of like spooky home renovation show where they're renovating haunted houses. This girl's kind of at a dead end place in her life where nothing's really going on. However, her brother is like the star of this home renovation show. And so she gets a job with him just working tech on the show, helping out. And the cast of crew that we're introduced to is very interesting. Whenever we get to houses, they're very interesting. Like one of them's like at an apple orchard, and just the way that the locations are laid out, the kind of descriptions that we get. I really enjoyed it. And I really wanted more of this through the entire book. The crew is staging spooky things to happen on camera as you do on a Ghost Hunters type TV show. The way that they're getting that stuff done, how they're setting up the stunts. Is there anything actually spooky going on? Are there actually ghosts at these places? All to be found out. If the whole book was like that, I would have loved it if it just went a different direction. But at some point, it feels like it kind of forgets the premise that it's supposed to be about this renovation show, and it gets kind of sidetracked with the relationships in a way that it almost feels like chapters were missing. Like I was listening to this on audiobook, and there was like nothing else going on except for me walking, and we'd get to a new chapter, and I'd be like, "Is that where we were?" Is that what was going on? Like, I feel like I missed something. It just felt like there was the way that it was jumping and the pacing just felt kind of inconsistent to me. The payoff at the end of the book just wasn't enough to fix that kind of issue with me. It felt like a really good draft that maybe could have gone in a different direction into something that I think a lot of people would have really liked because it was written really well, and I liked the characters, how it's set up, the dynamic between the different employees of this company. There's really good stuff happening here, but overall just not something that I loved. Another one of my long walk reads of May was Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson. This is the first book that I've read by Delilah S. Dawson. I know a lot of people love Bloom, but haven't gotten there yet. One of the blurbs likened it to Saw, which was a very interesting comparison to me, considering this is a book about a girlfriend going to her boyfriend's home, to meet his family for the first time. A very weird house. Kind of reminds me of maybe like Don't Blink, Blink Twice. Blink Twice is what it's called. They have to give up their phones whenever they get there. There's like very specific ways of doing things. The reason that our main character is even dating this guy who she finds like kind of him repulsive and his family repulsive is because his mom is a famous fashion designer, and that's what she wants to do. Is she's kind of coming from a lower class place and wants to have that connection, but she's having trouble even getting a chance to talk to his mom because she's like finding a reason to be out of the room anytime that could happen. It's very much the dad rules the house type of place, and just the vibes are off. You're not supposed to talk to the help, the employees of the house, who all have to dress in a certain way. Visitors all have to dress in a certain way. She finds out that her clothing has been changed, that all of her pink dresses have been taken, and she is given these very expensive dresses to wear in its place. The way the story progresses, I found very entertaining, but also pretty predictable, and that's why it ends up at this place in the ranking for this month. The Saw comparison, surprisingly fair. Punishments are doled out in very specific, violent ways, by the perpetrators in this book, that are somehow associated with the things that they have been doing wrong in the world. There's also this kind of conspiracy into what's been going on with this family, why this family is like how it is, why they have so much power, but also why are things so weird there? Why is it weird for a visitor to even come? It feels like more scrutiny on her than you would even expect for, a girlfriend coming home to a family's house for the first time. So, yeah, very entertaining, but predictable, but it delivered on the premise that I was sold on. And so, yeah, very happy with having read this, and I'll have to check out Bloom, I guess. I was so happily surprised with this next book, but Not Too Bold by Hache Pueyo, which was translated by the author. I believe she's Argentinian Brazilian. I believe it was originally written in Spanish, but yeah, she did her own translation. This cover is so gorgeous. I think it's so pretty and feminine and weird. However, like, look at the original cover. It's so sexy. I love it. This has all the makings of a typical tour novella where there's like kind of this one location, one premise. They're going to deliver on that exact premise and expect it to be kind of weird and emotional. But also, you get introduced to most of the working parts of the story very quickly. This book has a real dark fantasy fairy tale kind of vibe. Our main character is an employee in this like weird house which is run by a kind of spider woman creature god like thing, named Anetema. In the lore of this world, there are other creatures that are similar in power to Anetema but have like different physical representation. So whereas Anetema has more of like a spider like appearance, similar just like I think like eyeballs, or they have weird amorphous type physicalities, but our main character is human. She has recently come to be in a higher position in the house because the woman that she was an apprentice to, the master of the keys, was murdered by Anetema, which is something that happens very frequently, is that Anetema is just eating people based on whims and vibes. Um, and we do support women's rights and wrongs on this channel, so good for her. However, our main character is not keen on dying, and so she is playing along with Anatema's vibes and kind of sensing like what is maybe like what sets her off sometimes. How can I get in her good graces? How can I support her, but also be real with the other employees of this household? Very interesting. It does become this like romantic relationship between our main character and Anatema. Um, like, I guess it's monster romance light, which I don't really read romance or monster books, but I felt like it was more on the horror side with kind of like this like sexy undertone that I really gelled with. Like I don't know how you find books that are like exactly like that are just lush and sexy without being romances, or that don't lose the mystery of it all. Like, that's what I like, is whenever it's like very vibey. I will say, like, usually whenever something is marketed as a dark fairy tale or fantasy, I usually find them very cold and detached. And this, I felt very involved in the world. Like, I felt like the house was weird and Anetma was weird, but it laid out how the house actually worked in a way that was like able to be followed along with, and I was able to visualize. I just was very pleasantly pleased with how much I liked this book. I really didn't know what I was getting into going in, and I don't even really remember why I picked it up other than it's like a horror new release. But yeah, this is a good novella if any of that kind of stuff appeals to you. And then I'm getting down to my best two books of the month. The next one, When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This was certainly a book. I loved Nat Cassidy's Rest Stop earlier this year, and while it didn't quite match up to that to me, this one was so good. I listened to it on audiobook, and it was, I don't think I even knew what it was about going in, but it was much different than I expected. As I was introduced to this world, I still couldn't predict where it was going. Our main character is a down on her luck working actress, just trying to get jobs working as an actress, trying to break through while also working at a diner. When one night something very weird happens where a man is running around naked and loses track of his son that is with him, and our main character decides to be the protector of this boy. It's apparent very quickly that he has special abilities, that he is able to change the world around him with his beliefs, how he sees the world, which is, dangerous too, as a child's ideas are sometimes random, that he can see things on the TV, a horror movie on TV, and then believe that those things are real. And then they do become real because he believes it. And so he's able to wish monsters into the world. And so she is trying to protect him while also protecting herself. A lot of this book is on the road too, that she's on this road trip trying to keep her and this boy safe. There's also other points of view in this novel that are told from government workers who are trying to find this boy to secure him, because there's been some military government reason why this boy is how he is, where he came from. I really liked the shape-shifting elements in this, and then also I felt like it did a good job of integrating its themes about anxieties into the novel without it feeling like overly preachy or anything. This young boy has very valid anxieties about the world. His world is very scary to him. However, our main character has her own issues with the world, has her own anxieties, and how she manifests those as well. That just because we grow up, we don't grow out of the stage of imagining things that are then very real, because your fear is sometimes the thing that makes things real. I thought it was just a really solid novel. The horror elements were done so well. There was a lot of intangible stuff that was happening, and stuff that I feel like should be hard to put down on the page, hard to write about, things that aren't of this world. But I was able to follow along with all of it, and I just really admire the way that Nat Cassidy writes, and I think that he's definitely like a new must-read author for me. So if you're looking for a more emotional, philosophical horror read, maybe this is one for you. And then my best book of the month, I've already done a whole review video on, and that is Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker. This book had it all for me because it was about a girl who saw her sister die from a hate crime. She was pushed in front of a train, and after that point, she feels like she is being haunted by a ghost. It takes place during the Hungry Ghost Festival in the early days of COVID in New York City. Our main character, Cora, is also a germaphobe. So, COVID going on is very horrific to her. There's racial violence, the threat of racial violence that's very real all around her. Imagining the tension, like she's just being like followed on all sides. There's also this serial killer that is targeting Asian Americans in Chinatown, and Cora, working as a crime scene cleaner, is on kind of the ground floor of this, that she notices it very quickly, that there are these signs that they're all related because there are pictures of bats or real bats at all of these scenes, bats being associated with racist stereotypes about COVID. So really she feels threats on all sides, and she's just trying to do her best. She's also just haunted by her grief, that she feels like she didn't do well enough by her sister, maybe during life, but definitely during death, that she feels like she didn't mourn her in a correct way, and so she feels like it's her ghost that's haunting her down. The highlights for this book for me are definitely the types of horror that were involved in the book, that it does so well, both with the tactile and the amorphous, intangible kind of horror that's in this book, and the more spiritual side of things. It does so well balancing those things, and also just the relationships, the characterization. I loved the dynamic of the employees of the crime scene cleaner crew. They were all so different. The book was really funny at times. It just really had everything, like so much to talk about with this book in terms of the themes and just the quantity of themes that were broached upon, and they were all done so in such a natural way that it didn't become overloaded or chaotic. It was just such a solid horror read, and I think it's very likely that this might end up being my favorite horror book of the year. But there's still, half a year left, so we will see how it goes. Anyway, I had so many books to talk about this month, so thank you for joining me again to talk about my best books of the month. I would love to know what your best book of the month was. Anything that you're looking forward to reading soon. If any of these books sound good to you, please let me know. If you read them, I would love to hear your thoughts. But until then, I will talk to you soon. Bye.